start with introduce yourself.
I'm Stacy Theodossin, and I started my journey with Ayurveda. Actually, it will take it way, way back, more than 30 years ago, when I had my own chronic health problems. And because of that, I call it the medical mambo. I went from doctor to doctor, place to place, trying to figure out like what was wrong, how to cure what was wrong with me. I got a lot of runaround, At one point, I had uterine fibroid tumors and I was quite young and I had bleeding. I bled every single day for 2 years. So, of course, after all that bleeding, I became very anemic. I needed blood transfusions. And I was told early on that, well, all the interventions involved, radical drugs or surgeries that would leave scarring in the uterine area, or even I was recommended at one point to have a hysterectomy, and that if I did that, I'd stop bleeding. And I said, that's a lot like me saying I have a migraine and you say decapitate yourself. Like, your life will be forever changed by removing organs, right? And I kept saying, but why am I bleeding? Why am I having this problem, right? Because I'd been pretty healthy up until then. After going place to place for a couple of years, and I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And I had that innate knowing that there's got to be some better way to handle this as a young person. I've got to be able to heal and still be able to have the choice whether or not to have children later on. And that choice will be completely removed if I have a hysterectomy. Yeah. And my pain will go away and I'll stop bleeding. But why was I bleeding in the first place? How did I get to be this way? I ended up going to Nevada to see an Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Kruger. It just changed my life dramatically. The very first session, he had asked me to come out there and he wanted to see me every day for a week. And it was really interesting to me because I, of course, told him what my problem was ahead of time on the phone. And this is way before video calls and all that. When I got to his office, he had a whole wall of pictures of babies. And those were all the babies that were born after the mothers were told that they wouldn't be able to have children. So I thought that was, inspiring. And again, I was a young person. I didn't necessarily want to have kids right then, but I wanted to have the choice later on. The very first time that I saw him, he did some hands-on treatments. My pain stopped by later that day. And by the next morning, I wasn't bleeding anymore. So pretty much whatever he told me to do after that, I was going to listen. It's when I learned about Ayurveda and how to care for myself with Ayurvedic medicine. I healed from those particular issues that I had at the time. Eventually, I had the opportunity to study Ayurvedic medicine. And I don't think I initially wanted to do it for a living. I was just really wanted to wrap my head around what is all this and why does it work, And the deeper I went into it, the more I was interested in being able to share my experience, educate people as well. That's how I got into Ayurveda initially. I've been in private practice for over 25 years. And for the last 25 years, I have been working at Karmanos Cancer Treatment Centers here in the Detroit area, teaching Ayurvedic practices, energy healing, meditation, and all of those kind of things that are part of Ayurveda, the energy work, seasonal nutrition, and being in harmony with nature. I started with the Ayurveda, and being in that field, of course, anything that was natural, holistic, and so on, people would say, do you know about this? Do you know about that? And that's how I ended up getting into studying energy healing modalities from around the world. So I studied Qigong, which is from China. Of course, I studied prana, and chakra balancing, which is part of Ayurveda. And then I learned Reiki and Karuna Ki, which come from Japan. So every corner of the world has a way of talking about energy. So everything is really energetic. And so I studied energy healing in depth, and over the years have just continued to add to my offerings, and as I've explored ways to provide my own healing and trained on how to do that, then I continue to share and grow the offerings that I have for clients to learn how to care for themselves in a more holistic approach.
Since 2020, this decade has really been all about losing trust in traditional, whether it's traditional media, traditional medicine, and I'm glad that you mentioned you work with cancer. I want to get your reaction to this video.
It can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul. And those three things are going to carry on forever.
Affects everyone. It's the one thing that whether you're rich, poor,
gay or straight,
white, black, doesn't matter. It's unavoidable. We yet to have a cure. Millions of dollars spent on healthcare, advanced technology, and traditional medicine. Yet we have no cure.
It's big business, right? So even though we have healthful products on the market that cause cancer or are contributing factors to cancer, it's big business to keep them where they are on the shelves and having people continue to buy them and then invest in medical treatments,
Traditional medicine, and really the reason why I created the project. So since 2020, this decade has really been all about losing trust in traditional. This massive distrust in traditional medicine. And that was why I created this coalition and why I created this platform in the beginning. I wanted it to really change the landscape of healthcare. Why did you join the coalition? And I told you my goals for what I want this to be, but what is your goal?
Well, Samuel, I really was drawn to your vision of how you can help people with this type of platform. So that's what drew me to want to join the coalition. I'm very passionate about what I do and my ability to help people, educate them on how to better care for themselves. And I thought this was an excellent platform that you are creating, and I want to be a change maker. And so I thought getting on the ground floor of where I see some positive benefit, for people moving forward and how they can more affordably and easily access the kind of information that they might like and they don't know where to go. So I like the centralized, location of what you're doing.
It's not even about interest in Ayurveda. It's the fact that people don't even know what it is.
Last night, when people ask me what I do and I say Ayurveda, it's like, first of all, well, what is that, right? And I'll answer what that is. It means the science or wisdom of life. It's a Sanskrit word that means the science or wisdom of life, and is the oldest, most complete holistic medical system in the world, coming from India. And it's been in continual use for over 5,000 years. And even though it's been around for super long time, it's, especially here in the US, I can only compare because I live here, it's, people don't know what it is. When I connect with the people in India, even if they're not using those practices, they all know what it is.
It's funny because the only really that people know about it is, Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, talking about panchakarma and talking about how he went on a retreat, on an ayahuasca retreat, and everyone pretty much clowned him for it. So what they do is they clown Ayurveda itself just because Aaron Rodgers did it, when really the thing that people should look at is the fact that he's one of the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL and he's still playing because he's doing these alternative medicine treatments. And it's the same thing you've seen with Tom Brady introducing more of a vegan diet, LeBron James introducing more vegan elements into what he does. You're seeing these athletes play longer than everyone else, and everyone's like, why is that? Why is it that Tom Brady can beat time, and how is it that LeBron can do this, and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is it's because they use alternative medicine. To circle back, I mentioned that benefit of how it's helped the athletes.
Oh, there's so many ways that Ayurveda can help the average person, because the average person, their adrenals are on fire. They're super stressed out all the time, pinched for time. They eat on the run. They're not preparing their own food. Now, in Ayurveda, we don't necessarily, and a vegan diet can be very health supporting, as well as a pescatarian and so on. But again, it goes back to the quality of the food. And in Ayurveda, it's not necessary for everybody to be a vegan. So if that doesn't suit that person and their, how they feel about things, but I will say that having more plant-based foods is helpful. But Ayurveda helps people have more discipline and more balance in their daily lives. So the trilogy of body, mind, spirit comes from Ayurveda. So if you visualize a three-legged stool, if you have a three-legged stool, you can stand on it. It's a good foundation for anything. But if you remove one leg, two legs won't hold it up, right? It's going to tip over. Yeah. So if your body is off, if your mental thinking is off, or your spiritual self is off, you're not going to be in balance and harmony. So people tell me all the time, oh gosh, how many different ways it helps them. Their lives at work become better, their relationships become better, how they feel becomes better, the way they parent, if they're parents, that becomes better, the way that they have relationships with others becomes better, because they are working on their primary relationship, which is, your dance partner for life, yourself, right? They just feel more in harmony. They learn to be more patient. They learn to use their own intuition, kind of like how I did as a young person, like having that knowing there's got to be a better way than just cutting out body parts when you're in your early 20s, right? And then say, well, you're all good now. That didn't seem like a good thing to me. So I think it opens up choices for people. When you feel good, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, going through life is better. That's why it makes everything better, right? You have more energy for all of the parts of life. I can't tell you enough how it impacts people and how they come back to me and they're like, they came to me for a particular problem, and maybe it was cancer, maybe it was diabetes, maybe it was some other chronic thing, MS, fibromyalgia, all kinds of different things. But when you have chronic pain, you're not in your best light. You don't feel your best, and all your interactions are impacted by that. So, all the relationships improve, like I said, whether it's work, at home, or whatever, because they're feeling better. When you get rid of chronic pain and chronic inflammation, it opens up your mental capacity so you can just do more in life, and they're learning, like I said before, holistic medicine is simple. It's simple things, right? But it's not easy because it takes discipline, and when people learn that discipline, it's like, and they carve out that time for themselves, they crave it. They crave to have those practices, whether that be breathing, meditation, gratitude practices, preparing their own foods. You enjoy your food more, I think, too, when you're not eating out of a box in a hurry all the time. People are distracted. They're on phones, devices, watching TV, doing social media and all these other things instead of being present. And that's a lot of the mindfulness parts of Ayurveda and meditation, is that you learn to be like in the moment. And all anxiety is created by you're either looking forward to the future, to something that has yet to occur, or you're ruminating on something that already happened that you can't change. All you can do, if you've had a past experience that didn't suit you well, is take that wisdom and move forward and choose differently in the present moment and learn to honor where you're at. There is no one size fits all Ayurvedic diet, but I will say that we are eating seasonal nutrition. So it's eating things that are in season, that are from your part of the world. Instead of, if I'm here in Detroit and it's the middle of winter, bananas aren't on the menu. We don't live in a tropical climate, right? So that's one aspect of it. All the food choices are related to our dosha and our dosha imbalances. So your dosha is they're based on the elements. So we are all have a little bit of each of the doshas. So there's Vata. We're in Vata season right now. Vata means wind or air, and that's the winter season. It's the longest season in Ayurveda. It begins November 1st and it goes through the spring. When we move into Kapha season, Kapha means water. So that's the spring element. And then we have Pitta, which means fire, and that correlates with the season of summer, when it would be warmer and hotter. So each of us have elements of all the above. Most people are not tridosha. We're not equally balanced in all of them. Most people have two predominant doshas or one predominant dosha. And so you have your prakriti, which is your nature, like how you were born. So certain parts of like determining your dosha have to do with eye and hair color, the type of skin texture that you have, and your skeletal build, and all those kind of how muscular you are, and all those things, which cannot be changed, right? That's how you're born. And then other things come into it from, things that we're introducing into our energetic space. So that could be the foods that we're eating, the things that we're putting on our skin, the thoughts in our head, even the kind of music we're listening to, like how active we are. All those kind of things affect our doshas and therefore doshic imbalances. So when I work with a client, we determine their dosha. That's pretty quick off, so that we know both their nature and where there might be an imbalance. So certain imbalances translate into certain disease states in the body, over and over and over again. So people who have a lot of joint pain, for example, is typically a vata imbalance, right? That's something that we have in the colder season. So people tend to be achier, and vata season also relates to like later life years where people would have more of those kind of issues. And then what we do is the foods that we recommend, of course, are always going to be in season, but then they are specific to that dosha. Some doshas should never eat red meat. Some doshas do very well with it. Poultry, may or may not be indicated. Seafood may or may not be indicated, but we all do better when we have at least a large proportion of our nutrition come from plant-based items, because fruits and vegetables can be very supportive. And again, we're using things that are, the more we can eat locally and the more we can eat in season foods, so in fall and winter, we have a little bit different foods, that we would have than versus the summertime, even by where you live in the world. Those are more supportive, and the fresher you can eat food. And I had talked about energy before.
Yeah.
Food can have a vibration, just like people vibrate, all living things vibrate. So the closer you eat your food to when it was picked, the more nutrients you get, or the higher vibration the food is. If you take food that's in a can,
wow,
well, now it has no vibration. So it will give you calories, it will keep you alive, but it won't actually add to that vibration or raise that vibration to make you in better health. So that's one of the reasons that we eat such fresh food.
You obviously have done work with cancer patients. Notice the issue of imbalance, right? In a lot of diseases, whether it's an imbalance in your metabolism or imbalance in your hormones. So I found it really interesting that, like you mentioned, it's every single disease stems from an imbalance. And even trying to fit a glove of 8, or billions of people to eat a certain diet just doesn't work because everyone's different. So I like that you mentioned that Ayurveda doesn't have a specific diet. If I am, in the Inuit tribe, for instance, I'm not going to be able to eat a vegan diet because I can't find the plants. I'm going to have to hunt my food whenever I want to eat. So,
and you would find that those things would support that culture. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're drawn to the things that are readily available. So even like the herbs that naturally grow in your yard, and what kind of vegetables naturally grow here, my region versus somebody else's region, I would say in an overall sense, you're more acclimated to eat those things. But how does this affect cancer patients? When I'm at the hospital working and I see what snacks people bring in with them, I see lots of juice. I see lots of bottled protein drinks that are high in sugar.
Yeah.
I see them eating lots of snack foods and packaged foods. And that's exactly how they got into the state that they're in right now. Those will provide them calories and keep them alive, but it's definitely not adding to their vibration, and certainly won't heal them. So when we introduce, fresh foods and herbs and spices and things like that are health supporting, it absolutely changes how we feel, on every level. That's the biggest, I think one of the biggest things is habits and food intake, what people are putting into their bodies that affect their disease state and how they're feeling. But again, we're looking to your particular dosha. So some doshas, there's 6 tastes in Ayurveda. We all are, have all the tastes in our diet. So you have astringent, sweet, salty, bitter, all those kind of things. Where we get those tastes from would vary by our dosha, so some doshas do well with honey, some do better with agave. You know what I'm saying? For a sweet, fruits are okay, but again, certain fruits are more supportive of certain doshas versus other doshas. So that's where kind of some of that education comes in, where I'm telling people lean into these things. They're more supportive of your dosha or your dosha imbalances, and lean away from these things. So even though millet or a particular kind of nut, you might have heard someplace that it's good, it might be less supportive than a different nut for your dosha or your dosha imbalance. There's no one size fits all. Well, even you're talking about a vegan diet or even vegetarian diet. Some people eat cheese pizza and they think they're a vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
Or they're eating, pasta and they say it's vegan, if it's made without egg or something. Is that the most supportive vegan food that you can find? Probably not, right? Nuts, grains, seeds, fruits, and vegetables are going to be more supportive than a packaged thing that just lacks animal product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
An animal product isn't bad, because if you're a vegan, then it's necessary a lot of times to supplement with the B vitamins and such, because you don't get them naturally from the foods that you're consuming. Some people are supported by eating eggs and dairy and other things that would be part of more vegetarian way of eating. Some people need, that do very well with the pescatarian or with poultry and so on. I think we can agree for anybody that red meat's got more saturated fat. So if that's an issue for you, then you might want to stay away from it. But Ayurveda doesn't specifically say that the whole world needs to be vegan or vegetarian, but it certainly is a supportive way to eat once you know which food items are best and most supportive for your particular dosha.
In the fighting world, two fighters, both were vegan. Nate Diaz was vegan, and his career started to take a downward spiral. Or Sugar Sean O'Malley, who actually recently just became a champion, he went the opposite route and went from vegan to starting to eat meat. And because of that, I don't know if there's a direct correlation there, but he started to win and actually became a champion. Great point that, just thinking that it's a one size fit all instead of looking at the individual, looking at your lifestyle, looking at your environment, and looking at your dosha really plays a pivotal role in your diet.
Well, the traditional healthcare system, the way that I see it and working in a hospital environment all of these years, is that people want quick and easy solutions. People don't want to have to put a lot of time and energy into taking care of themselves. And if you go to somebody and they tell you do this, this, and this, and pop this pill, and you do that, that's pretty easy peasy, right? But if you are really going to take care of yourself in a holistic sense and use something like Ayurveda or another natural modality to support yourself, it actually involves you tuning into your intuition, and it takes a lot of daily practices, right? So like I said, Ayurveda and natural medicine are simple but not easy, right? Because it actually takes daily discipline. I practice yoga, meditation, gratitude practices, prepare my own food and so on every single day, right? Every day. Wow. So that takes effort. And a lot of people don't want to put that much time and energy into caring for themselves. So I see, that's a big thing. Also in traditional medicine, we go to somebody and they tell us exactly what to do. And in Ayurveda, we invite them, we teach them the practices that would be supportive to them, but then we invite them to follow their own intuition, right? That's cool. And they have to tune into how they're feeling and what they might need in that moment and how best to support themselves in that moment. There's, again, I mentioned hundreds of ways to move our body. There's hundreds of ways to meditate. So I'm not telling somebody you're going to do this meditation and move your body this way. I invite them to what feels natural and good to them, what feels supportive to them. Like, I don't like going to the gym, but I'm super active every day. I think I mentioned I go on these really long walks. I dance, I practice yoga. I like swimming. I like gardening. These are all ways of moving my body that support me being in good health and well-being and have lots of flexibility and strength and so on. But I never set foot in the gym. But if I were to go to a gym, I guess I could lift a lot of weights or something because I'm really strong from all the other things that I'm doing. So I always say, like, yoga will make any sport or activity that you're interested in doing, it'll make it better. But those other sports and activities like running or playing basketball or something, those won't make your yoga practice better.
It's funny because I was watching a video on Netflix and it was talking about everywhere in the world where people live to be 100 years old. And one commonality.
Garden.
Exactly. They don't go to a traditional gym. It's just that their lifestyle is active. And then in the U.S., especially among my age group, people are always going to the gym. And, obviously there's other factors, but, you're not seeing a long last on healthcare. Obviously, or on their health and their wellness. Obviously going to a gym is good because it's good to get the activity, but
if that's what feels good to a person, and like I have a friend, he's super into riding the Peloton, and he'll be like, I'm in South America riding the Peloton, and I'm like, I'm out hiking in the woods, if that makes him happy to do the Peloton. The main thing is that he's moving his body every day, and he's in his 60s and he's in good shape, but that's what he likes to do. I encourage people to, how did you like to move your body when you were a young person? My dad said to me one day, don't you think that's a little bit immature that you still go out dancing? You're 45 years old or whatever. Now I'm 55 and I still went dancing. And I even broke my leg and my knee last year and I was still out dancing for my birthday this year. I had gone dancing. I broke my leg about a week after my birthday last year. And by this year, I was out dancing again when I had my birthday. But that's one of the reasons that I heal better and like people are like, I would never know that you broke all those bones last year because you move normally. I had a really, really hard time at particular junctures last year. I was in a cast and a brace. I had a broken leg and a broken knee, but I was doing all the healing modalities that I recommend for my clients. What happens when you have a broken bone? Lots of inflammation in the body, right? So I was taking turmeric, black pepper, and I was doing energy healing, and I was trying to eat nutritious food and drink a lot of water and ice myself and all the things that you do. And I was still doing yogic breathing, even though I couldn't do a full yoga practice. I was in the bed with my leg propped up doing leg lifts and doing like upper body movement and breathing. I was still doing meditation. I just think that's like super important that, you know, we connect with how we like moving our body. So I told my dad, you know, what would be weirder if just all of a sudden one day I didn't like dancing because I've always liked dancing. That would be really weird to me. And he had to think about that for a second. He was like, I guess you're right. We'll have fun dancing. You know, I participate in ecstatic dance, and I also lead ecstatic dance, which is actually a healing modality in its own. Similar to how yoga works, you get that no mind experience because you're moving your body and you're able to like free your mind. Even forms of like exercise expression can be, yoga is an active form of meditation. Dance is an active form of meditation. Gardening, walking, hiking, all of those things can be an active form of meditation. So you can get that whole body mind thing going on while you move your body. So I always invite people, like, what did you like to do? How did you like to move your body when you were a young person? So Stacy's prescription for exercise for each person is unique to that person. I'm not saying you have to go to the gym every day for 60 minutes. If that sounds horrible to somebody, then don't go to the gym, but you move your body for 60 minutes purposely every single day. You know, however that rolls out for you. I like to be outside. I like to be in nature. Ayurveda does encourage us to get outside and connect with nature and get in alignment and attunement with the seasons. And we detox twice a year, going into Vata season and coming out of Vata season. We do detoxification and purification of the body. You know, so that's a very important aspect of being in harmony with nature, is that we actually get out in nature and we're actually eating the foods of nature, you know, and like what's in our local community. Moving our body, eating healthful foods, meditating, all these things I'm telling you, they raise our energetic, you know, vibration, our blueprint. They make for us to be a more well-rounded, healthful person.
I just finished a video working on the efficacy of ivermectin, and I've also, you know, looked into fenbenzidol, and you mentioned before curcumin. So do you use any off-label drugs in your treatment or any supplements?
Any supplementation is done for me in my personal practice. I don't do off-label drugs, but I do supplementation is plant medicine. Essential oils are a very potent form of plant medicine. I do work with those a lot. And there's also a company called APL Go that's originally from Europe. They've been in the US for almost 5 years now. And since they've been in the US, they have the #1 immune support product in the market. And those are all made from plants and herbs that are supported by Ayurveda. So I really do like their products. And those basically, it looks like a little candy or something that you suck on. What gives it flavor and color and so on is plants. And they're made from essential oils and plant extracts. So I encourage people to use food as medicine and get a lot of their like I was mentioning before, the turmeric and all those things, the spices, the herbs from their actual food, but they can also be taken in supplement form. So those plant medicine works best sublingual, where you're it's bypassing, you're not swallowing a pill or a supplement that has to go through the digestive process. It's getting absorbed through like your tongue. And then it hits your bloodstream within about 15 minutes of ingesting it. Wow. And immediately goes to work. That's how I recommend supplementation for people who need it. I do obviously see a lot of cancer patients, having worked at a cancer treatment center for the last 25 years. I also just recently signed a contract with another place called Gilda's Club, and they're all over the country, but they have multiple locations in the Detroit area, and they're a nonprofit. They do not offer treatment, but they offer support programs and education for cancer patients and their family members. So I'll be doing, again, teaching people how to do energy healing, teaching about essential oils, teaching yoga and all those different support things, meditation. So that's, I do see a lot of cancer patients, but anybody that has a chronic, sometimes people just call me up and they're like, I feel energetically off, or I feel like I could be taking better care of myself and I don't really know how to do that, but I'm very drawn to Ayurveda, right? So there's those people that don't necessarily have something wrong right now per se, but they even feel like I was talking about like their energy. They just feel like their energy isn't as high vibration as it could be, and they want to know how to improve that. So there's people who are healthy, that are looking to stay healthy. There's people, I work with people with all kind of different chronic things like MS, lupus, diabetes, heart disease, cancer. I just had a guy talk to me last night about kidney disease, all those different kind of things that are going to be impacted by having more healthful, natural lifestyle choices are people that I work with. So it's a wide range of people. And I also happen to be an ordained minister. So a lot of people even come for spiritual reasons. They just feel spiritually off and they want to be more in alignment with nature.
Especially in the US, because so many people struggle with anxiety. Heart disease is the number one killer in the US, and cancer's number 3 behind COVID-19.
It's so interesting when I even say the word Ayurveda, people are like, I have no idea what that is. They've never even heard of it. So that's one thing, is just lack of knowing, right? They just don't have experience with it. Until I looked for options outside of traditional Western medicine, I didn't know what Ayurveda was either. So I've kind of been on a mission all these years for educating people. And one of the things that I always say to people when I mention I'm in Ayurvedic medicine, they're like, I have no idea what it is. And I'm like, I bet you're aware of some of the practices of Ayurveda and just didn't know that it was part of a larger system of caring for yourself. So then I start talking about yoga and meditation, essential oils, plant medicine, seasonal nutrition, circadian rhythms, stuff like that. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know. See, they didn't know that was Ayurveda. So people know a little bits and pieces because that's what they've been introduced to,
Me, turmeric. Turmeric's become my best friend since 2020. I mean, I've used it so many times. And even, the rise in herbal medicine, people really love yoga. So it's a great point, is that people really do know what it is. They just don't know that it is Ayurveda. So my next question is, what is wellness to you and how does it apply to Ayurveda?
Well, wellness to me is being in balance, body, mind, and spirit. And that is exactly what Ayurveda is, body, mind, and spirit.
What reviews have you received from past clients?
One of the things that I've noticed time and time again, that I'll have a client and I get lots of referrals to their friends and family. I appreciate that people are getting good results from working with me, and more importantly, that they trust the health and well-being of their loved ones in my hands as well. And a lot of that comes from their experiences of wellness. I had a lady just recently, she's a Black woman from the Detroit area here, and she had not, and it was partly how she was raised, but she had a distrust of people that were not from her same ethnic community. And if she wasn't referred to me from a trusted family member, she probably would have never come to see me. And because of her work with me, and she really felt that there was a space of non-judgment, right? And a lot of compassion that was coming from the work that we did together, that it has completely opened her up as a person. She's now interacting with people outside of her immediate culture. She said she's parenting differently. She has young kids.
Wow.
And so that same distrust that she was raised with is like out the window, and she's like rethought so many things in her life. And so she came to me because she had cancer. All her cancer numbers are improved, all that good stuff, and she's in remission, and that's wonderful. But she will forever be changed. How she's moving about the world is forever changed. How she's raising her children, how she is in relationship with her spouse, and all of that is forever changed because of the work we did. And that's just a byproduct of getting in balance. I never ask people to do anything that I'm unwilling to do myself. I know how hard it is to make change, right? And that we have to do things in an incremental way. And we build from, what's most important to get us on track at that time and then move forward. I came to Ayurveda, again, because of my own health problems, and that I make a concerted effort on a daily basis to walk my walk, and talk my talk. I do the same practices that I'm teaching, that I'm encouraging people to do. I try to be like a living example of what Ayurveda can do for you. I hear all the time, like, gosh, you have so much energy and vitality and so on. And I really attribute that to what I learned from Dr. Kruger all those years ago, and to pay it forward and to educate people. Like, it's my passion to help educate people, because life is good. Everything's better when you feel good, body, mind, and spirit.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the subscribe button and visit themerlinggroupworld.com/Ayurveda for more.